written some really long foundational papers that are publicly available on like SSRN. I remember reading through, I don't think I ever finished them. Like it's like 80 pages or something of like deep fundamental first principles macro that you wrote back in like, I want to say 08, 09, 2010, something like that. And you've got a book, right? Pragmatic Capitalist, that came out a little after that, right? When did Pragmatic Capitalist come out?
I think I published 2013, 14, something like that. So yeah, a lot of the really like big pieces of work that I wrote like after the financial crisis, really, a lot of the stuff that people probably have read from me that they, I'm kind of somewhat known for, I guess, came out really around the financial crisis period. So the financial crisis for me was really like my big aha moment about so much of macro, because I came up from a very sort of traditional macroeconomics background where I basically learned like the type of economics that you would read from like a Paul Krugman or like a Larry Summers, very traditional mainstream macro. And the crazy thing during going through the financial crisis was that a lot of these guys that I was talking to in Japan were like, no. A lot of the stuff that the American economists are talking about, it just doesn't work like that. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, so explain to me like what's wrong. And like, so some of the big ones, for instance, were if you go through a macro econ course, everybody learns like the money multiplier. You learn that the central bank, for instance, if they create $10 of reserves, the banks now have the ability to multiply this $10 into like $100 or something. And this concept is in every single textbook, in every single economics course that's taught, especially in the United States, and it's fundamentally wrong. And the Fed, weirdly, like just came out with a piece like, this was like 3 or 4 months ago, I think, admitting basically like, okay, this concept is really not how banks work. And so stuff like that was really crucial to understand, because when the Fed was expanding their balance sheet back in 08, 09, a lot of economists were saying like, oh no, well, what happens if all these reserves get out into the banking system and the banks start lending all of these reserves? And, I'm talking to these guys in Japan, and they're like, no. That literally is not how banks actually operate. And we know from experience that when the central bank floods the banking system with reserves, the banks do not lend that to the non-bank public and cannot. So there is no way this can cause hyperinflation the way that some American economists are saying this might. So stuff like that was really, super eye-opening, because it made you kind of question, like, I was like, holy shit, I got this supposedly great education at this great school, and now I'm kind of learning in the real world that, a lot of the theory just doesn't work like that.